In an Amish family of 12, the youngest child is raised differently than all the others. Here is the complete reality from birth to adulthood for the last child born into a crowded Amish home. Born into a crowded house. When the 12th child arrives, the house is already full. Every bedroom is occupied. Every chair at the table is taken. The youngest enters a world that has been running without them for years. The older siblings have established routines, friendships, and roles. The youngest must find a place in a system already in motion. The mother is exhausted. She has given birth 11 times before. Her body is tired. Her energy is limited. The father is busy managing a farm and 11 other children. The youngest does not receive the focused attention the first child received. They arrive into noise, activity, and organized chaos. From the first day, they must share everything. Raised by everyone. The youngest child in a large Amish family is not raised by parents alone. They are raised by everyone. The oldest daughter, who may be 18 or 19 when the youngest is born, acts as a second mother. She feeds the baby, changes diapers, and soothes crying fits while the mother handles other responsibilities. Older brothers carry the youngest on their backs during farm chores. They teach them to walk across uneven ground. Grandparents living nearby contribute too. The grandmother tells stories and passes down traditions. The grandfather teaches patience and simple skills. By the time the youngest is 5, they have been shaped by a dozen different people. Each sibling has left something in them. A habit, a phrase, a way of seeing the world. This collective raising creates a child who is deeply connected to family, but it also means the youngest rarely has their parents entirely to themselves. Hand-me-down childhood. Nothing belonging to the youngest child is new. Every piece of clothing has been worn by at least 2 or 3 siblings before them. The shirts are faded, the pants are patched, the shoes are scuffed. By the time clothing reaches the youngest, it has lived several lives already. The same applies to everything else. School books passed down through siblings have notes written in the margins. Toys are missing pieces. Tools are worn smooth from years of use. The youngest accepts this without complaint. Complaining about hand-me-downs is not acceptable in Amish culture. Gratitude is expected. Waste is sinful. What others have used and set aside is still serviceable. It still works. It still serves a purpose. The youngest learns early that the value of something is not determined by its newness, but there is still a quiet longing. Occasionally, a sibling receives something new for a wedding or special occasion. The youngest watches and waits for their own day. It will come, but it is still years away. Lost in the middle. With 11 siblings, the youngest struggles to stand out. The oldest child broke new ground for the family. The first daughter, the first son, the first baptism, the first wedding. These milestones were celebrated with full family attention. By the time the youngest reaches the same milestones, they feel routine. The family has seen it all before. The youngest's first steps are celebrated but not photographed or remembered in the same detail as the first child's. Their first day of school is noted but not remarkable. Their first communion is expected, not extraordinary. This does not mean the youngest is unloved. They are deeply loved. But they are one of 12. Individual moments are harder to carve out. The family moves as a unit. Decisions are made for the group. Individual preferences and needs are often subordinated to what works for everyone. The youngest learns to speak up to be heard. They learn to find creative ways to distinguish themselves. Some become the family comedian, others become the hardest worker. But finding an identity in a family this large requires effort.
Watching siblings leave. From an early age, the youngest watches siblings leave. The oldest brother marries first. He moves to his own farm. Then the oldest sister marries. She moves to her husband's community. One by one, the older siblings pair off and depart. Each departure changes the household. A bedroom empties. A seat at the table disappears. The noise level drops gradually. For the youngest, this is a strange experience. They have grown up surrounded by siblings. The house has always been full, loud, active. As they enter their teenage years, the house becomes quieter. The brothers and sisters who raised them are gone. They have their own families now. They visit on church Sundays and holidays. but they no longer live under the same roof. The youngest watches this process for years. By the time they are 15, several siblings have already gone. By the time they are 20, only they remain. The house that once held 14 people now holds 3, the youngest and their aging parents. The silence is unfamiliar. The space feels strange. The family they grew up in no longer exists in the same form. It is scattered across the community. The youngest is the last one standing, the last one home. When the second to last sibling marries and leaves, the youngest becomes the only child remaining in the house. This is a significant shift. For the first time in their life, they have their parents to themselves. There is space at the table. There is quiet in the evenings. The parents can focus on this one remaining child in a way they never could before. But the dynamic has changed. The parents are older now. The mother is in her late 40s or 50s. The father is approaching 60. They move more slowly. They tire more easily. The youngest is no longer just a child in the family. They are becoming a caretaker. The youngest helps with chores that older siblings once handled. They sit with their parents in the evenings. They hear stories about the older siblings, about the early years of the family, about the parents' own childhoods. These conversations create a closeness that the youngest shares with no other sibling. They know their parents in a way that none of the others do, not as one of 12, but as the only one left. Caring for parents. As the parents age, the responsibility falls on the youngest. This is understood from early on. The Amish do not send elderly parents to nursing homes. They care for them within the family. And because the youngest is the last one home, they bear the primary burden of that care. The aging father slows down. He can no longer manage all the farm work alone. The youngest takes over the heaviest tasks. They wake before dawn to do what the father once did. They make decisions that the father once made. The mother's health may also decline. The youngest's wife steps into the role of caregiver alongside her husband. They cook for the parents. They manage the parents' medications and appointments. They ensure the elderly couple is comfortable and safe. The older siblings help when they can. They visit. They contribute money. They take turns staying when a parent is seriously ill. But the daily care belongs to the youngest. This is not resented. It is accepted as the natural order. The youngest inherited the farm. They accepted the responsibility that came with it. Inheriting the farm. Amish tradition dictates that the youngest son inherits the family farm. This is different from most cultures where the oldest inherits. The Amish reasoning is practical. By the time the youngest is ready to marry, the older siblings have already established themselves. They have found their own land, built their own homes, and started their own families. The youngest is the one still at home. The youngest is the one who has been working the farm and learning its rhythms. The farm passes naturally to them. The inheritance is not just a gift, it is a responsibility. The youngest takes on the farm with all its debts, its aging equipment, and its daily demands. They do not start fresh. They continue something already in motion. They must maintain the fields, care for the livestock, and keep the operation profitable. The older siblings may feel some tension about this arrangement. They received no land. They had to establish themselves from nothing. But the tradition is clear and accepted. The youngest gets the farm. Everyone else builds their own.
The Dawdi House. When the youngest marries, the parents do not move away. They move next door. Amish tradition requires that the parents be cared for on the property. A small addition is built onto the main farmhouse. This is called the Dawdi House, meaning grandfather's house. It is a self-contained apartment attached to or adjacent to the main house. The parents move their belongings into this smaller space. The youngest and their new spouse take over the main house. The arrangement is practical. The parents are close enough to be helped immediately if needed. They can see their grandchildren daily. They can contribute to the household in small ways. They shell beans on the porch. They watch the younger grandchildren while the youngest works. They offer advice when asked, but they are no longer in charge. The transition of authority from parent to child is significant. The father, who once made all farm decisions, now defers to his youngest son. The mother, who once ran the kitchen, now watches her daughter-in-law cook. This transition requires humility. It does not always happen smoothly, but it is the Amish way. The youngest inherits the farm, and the parents come with it. The daughter-in-law's adjustment is particularly difficult. She married into a home where her mother-in-law lived just steps away. Every meal she cooks is implicitly compared to the one her mother-in-law made for decades in the same kitchen. Every decision she makes about the household is visible to the woman who ran it before her. The mother-in-law must resist the urge to interfere. The daughter-in-law must resist the urge to feel judged. Both women must navigate this new dynamic with patience and grace. Some manage it beautifully. They develop a close relationship built on mutual respect. The older woman shares her knowledge willingly. The younger woman receives it gratefully. Others struggle for years. The proximity that makes care possible also makes conflict inevitable. The Dawdi Haus arrangement works best when both generations choose humility over pride. Starting over. The youngest child begins married life in a unique position. They live on the farm where they were born. They sleep in the house they grew up in. Their parents are 50 feet away in the Dawdi Haus. Their entire history surrounds them. There is comfort in this. Deep roots, familiar soil, but there is also pressure. The youngest must prove themselves worthy of the inheritance. The community watches. The older siblings watch. The parents watch from the Dawdi Haus. The youngest cannot simply farm the land. They must improve it. They must build on what their parents created. They must raise their own children in the same house that raised them. Every corner of that house holds a memory. The bedroom where they slept is now where their children sleep. The kitchen table where they learned to talk is where their own family gathers. The farm that their father worked is now their responsibility. The youngest carries all of this, the weight of history, the expectation of continuation, the obligation to care for aging parents while simultaneously building their own family. This is the hard reality of being the youngest child in an Amish family of 12, born last. Raised by all, inherited everything, and started over in the place where everything began. The older siblings sometimes struggle with complicated feelings about the inheritance arrangement. They worked the same farm during their childhood years. They contributed labor and sweat to the land that now belongs to their youngest sibling. Some feel this is fair. The youngest stayed. The youngest cared for the parents. The youngest earned it. Others feel a quiet resentment that they work hard to suppress. They left because they had no choice. There was no land for them here. They built their own farms from nothing, while their youngest sibling received everything ready-made. These feelings are rarely spoken aloud. The Amish value contentment and acceptance. Expressing envy or resentment is considered sinful. But the feelings exist, and the youngest knows they exist. They feel the weight of that unspoken tension at family gatherings. They work harder because of it. They try to prove that the inheritance was deserved, that they are worthy custodians of everything their parents built. The hard reality of being the youngest child in an Amish family of 12 is complex. It is not simply a story of disadvantage or privilege. It is a story of a life shaped by birth order in ways the youngest never chose. They arrived into a crowded house and were raised by everyone. They wore hand-me-downs and struggled to find individual identity. They watched their siblings leave one by one until they were the only one remaining. They became a caretaker for aging parents before they were ready. They inherited the farm along with all its obligations. They built their marriage on the same ground where their parents built theirs. The youngest child carries more of the family's legacy than any of the others. The oldest sibling left early and built something new. The youngest stayed and maintained what was already there. They are the keeper of the family name on that specific piece of land. They are the one who will be buried in the same community cemetery as their parents and grandparents before them. The older siblings scattered across the settlement. The youngest stayed rooted. This rootedness is both a burden and a gift. It is a burden because leaving was never really an option. The farm needed them. The parents needed them. The tradition required them. It is a gift because they have something most people never find: a deep, unbroken connection to a place, a family, and a way of life that stretches back generations. The youngest child did not choose to be born last. but in choosing to stay, they became the anchor of everything that came before them. And in an Amish family of 12, that is no small thing.